DocTalk is brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.
Hey folks, Dr. Dan here from DocTalk. Be sure to join me next week as my guest is going to be Dr. Dale Blasey, and we're going to talk about beef cattle production on wheat pasture and rye pasture. Whether we're talking about dry land or center pivot, and whether we're talking about some of the challenges and some of the performance expectations that you can see, it's going to be a great show, so please join us.
As dependable as the sunrise, in dairy parlors, open pastures, on ranches and feed yards across America, a place where reputation is more than a name, where the science of healthier animals is a way of life. It's the responsibility that drives who we are and what we do. Every decision, every day. It's your livelihood and our responsibility.
Closed caption brought to you by AgriLabs, the perfect pairing of performance and value.
This segment brought to you by the new Hired Hand Portable Cow Sprayer. For more information, visit cowsprayer.com.
Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk, and welcome to the show, Dr. Blasey.
Good to be here, Dr. Thompson.
That's great, folks. This is Dale Blasey. He's a professor and extension beef specialist here at Kansas State University's Department of Animal Science and Industry. And most of you out there who watch the show have either seen Dale at one of the CE offerings or producer meetings that he puts on, or make sure that you come to the Stalker unit here at Kansas State University for Stalker Day every September. Great education and a little bit of fun thrown in.
That's right, Dan. We try our best to allow producers to interact with themselves as well as to hear the talking heads that provide the information.
You bet. And folks, one of the neatest and probably one of the nicest stalker research facilities in the United States. If you haven't seen it or hadn't been to Stalker Day, you need to, and you need to be there. But what we're going to talk about today is something that, we're coming upon that time of year of turning cattle out on wheat. You have a lot of experience with wheat pasture, rye pasture, and different things. And I thought, let's just talk in general about some of the things that are going on out there and how we handle some of these.
Well, wheat pasture's an amazing forage resource. In certain parts of the country, it affords people post-weaning to allow for some post-weaning growth on their calves prior to the actual marketing of their calves. And for many of our stocker as well as our feed yard operators, it affords them the opportunity to lay in calves at a light weight and develop some stretch on those calves prior to going into the yard, or if they're light enough, actually to fit into the next spring's grazing on our native grasses.
Oh, sure. And so when we're looking at there's obviously different types of systems associated with wheat, but the main one being dry land versus center pivot, right?
That's right. Majority, of course, is dry land, and whether or not the person who owns the operation wants to graze the cattle, and of course that's all complex with wheat prices and prevailing environmental conditions on whether there will be sufficient stand of wheat for somebody to actually take advantage of that growth of wheat.
Yeah, and you're talking about that, the environmental concerns. There's some years we don't get enough rainfall, we don't get enough wheat produced, there's not enough to put cattle out there. Can be somewhat unpredictable.
Absolutely, and in my work prior to moving to Manhattan out of Hutchinson, a sweet spot is down there in that Cherokee, Oklahoma area towards Enid, Oklahoma. There's some really good area there where the soil is somewhat sandy. Temperatures are such that they're able to get wheat up and going, avoiding Hessian fly and many of the mosaic wheat diseases and so forth. It really is a sweet spot for stalker production in that part of the state.
And just, we've got 30 seconds before we head to commercial here, but generally speaking, what is kind of the wheat turnout time period of the year?
We turn out anywhere, probably in November would be fair. As you move further south, it's obviously much earlier. But in my work down in the southern tier of counties in Kansas, we were lucky if we were on dry land around the middle of November.
Perfect. Well, let's take a break. Folks, thanks for watching Doc Talk. When we come back, more with Dr. Dale Blasey talking about grazing wheat and producing beef.
This Meet the Future Veterinarian is brought to you by Zuprevo. Choose confidence. Choose Zuprevo for BRD treatment. Jonathan Angel wanted to be a veterinarian since boyhood. He grew up near his grandparents' farm, where he spent much of his time. Completed the Boy Scout Veterinary Medicine Merit Badge in high school, and later shadowed the doctors at Sugar Creek Vet Clinic. After graduation, Jonathan will be joining this practice, and he and his wife will also move back to his grandparents' farm to raise polled Herefords.
Some call it a come-from-behind victory, an unlikely win, a reversal of fortune, snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. This is our moment, our victory dance, because we choose confidence. We choose Zuprevo for BRD treatment. Ask your veterinarian to prescribe Zuprevo. Zuprevo is a fast-acting, long-lasting BRD treatment that you can count on to get the job done. Choose confidence. Choose Zuprevo from Merck Animal Health.
Healthy cows start with the new hired hand automatic livestock sprayer. Rancher invented to provide an efficient alternative to pour-on and injectable parasite management systems. The portable design allows cattle to treat themselves head to hoof. Strategic device placement with pass-through activation technology takes the stress out of parasite treatment for cattle and the rancher. Get the new hired hand for yourself or become a distributor. Visit cowsprayer.com. The new hired hand makes healthy cows easy.
Calves require adequate, high-quality colostrum immediately following birth to receive the immune and nutritional support needed to fight diseases and thrive. Next-generation Colostrix colostrum replacer and supplement are USDA licensed to aid in the treatment of failure of passive transfer and contain natural maternal bovine colostrum antibodies against E. coli K99. Ask your animal health supplier for Colostrix or visit agrilabs.com for details. Colostrix makes all systems go.
Hey folks, welcome back to Doc Talk. We're lucky to be here today and lucky to have as a guest Dr. Dale Blasey. Dr. Blasey is a professor and a state beef extension specialist here at Kansas State University, where he deals with stocker cattle, grazing systems, and really has probably one of the nicest research facilities that I've ever been a part of, right out here at the stocker unit in Kansas State University. And we were talking about dry land, and you know, we talked about two different systems, and the other one being that center pivot or irrigated type pastures as well.
Incredible opportunities for producing beef, Dan. Many of these center pivots are perhaps not sufficient for normal corn production, but fits rather well with the development of forage. And a lot of producers are able to leverage that with the use of rye as opposed to wheat, because of the issues of infestation of rye into many of our wheat fields. A lot of our traditional farmers really do not like the idea of having rye anywhere in the vicinity of where they normally produce their wheat. So a lot of folks will look at triticale. Mostly rye is a great opportunity. One huge advantage with respect to center pivots and with rye is that producers are able to plant such that they're able to be out on that forage source by the first part of October. Ooh. So we have great opportunities to grow beef on center pivots, and having that mindset to stock accordingly provides you an opportunity for a uniform watering source, as well as to provide a supplemental feed as needed to stretch out what forage is standing for those cattle to graze.
Well, and as you mentioned earlier in the dryland thing, you know, it's dependent on whether or not we're going to have rain. Remove that variable, we can do a little bit more financial planning to move things forward. And as you mentioned, we can probably get a few more cattle put on that piece.
Absolutely. Much of the work that I've done in central Kansas traditionally typically would stock upwards of 300 head to one center pivot and set it up in a four-way pie and provide the watering source at the center of the center pivot with the pump there to provide water source, and rotate the cattle through accordingly to the growth of the feed, and providing a supplemental silage or be it a grain mix containing some rumensin in there to take the head of steam off of the potential for fermentation and bloat that may ensue. So
you bet.
It's a great opportunity. And another thing important too with respect to the dry land versus anything irrigated is much of the irrigated circles tend to be fenced with hardwire. Much of our dry land wheat resources tend to have a hot wire. And we deal with potential blizzards and stuff. We have tremendous wrecks with cattle being pushed and going 15, 20, 30 miles south, finding their cattle after a heavy snow. So that is one risk with respect to winter grazing and wheat pasture.
Yeah, just setting it up, you know, with the rye, then they're setting it up more with the cattle in mind rather than with the wheat, where
That's right.
we're setting it up with the wheat in mind.
Absolutely. And in many cases, as I indicated in the earlier segment, getting out the middle part of November, in many cases it was Thanksgiving, and with concerns for first joining on our wheat, in many years we're looking at somewhere in the middle part of February. So your period of time to graze can be quite short if you have the eye for having not a significant impact on subsequent grain yield.
Perfect. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Dr. Blasey about some of the problems you can have or some of the challenges you can have when grazing wheat pasture. Thanks for watching DocTalk. We'll be back after these messages.
The BQA Tip of the Day, sponsored by Beringer Engelheim Vetmedica, Inc.
Hello folks, this is Dr. Nels Lindberg with Animal Medical Center and Production Animal Consultation out of Great Bend, Kansas. Today's BQA Tip of the Day, we're going to visit about branding these cattle. Branding is a common procedure done throughout the United States and the world, but it's very important that we do the best we can to do that brand efficiently and in a timely manner. These cattle here turned out on rye, we often brand these sort of cattle when they're turned out of confinement so that if something happens, they get spooked, they get out, we have a means of identification of those animals for that producer. There's many different producers out there. They all have their different brands. But again, the important thing when we are branding these cattle is to have adequate restraint and to be able to do that brand in a timely manner. We want to make sure our brands are functioning properly, whether it's electric or if they're still being fired by propane or wood. We want to make sure that brand is good and hot so that we use the minimum amount of time to brand those animals. Again, adequate restraint and a properly functioning brand are keys to successfully branding cattle in a good and proper manner for that animal. Thank you.
It must be an inherited trait because I have never wanted to do anything other than be in the cattle business. And it's interesting as I have grandchildren now, little bitty ones. All they want to do is go to the barn, swing a rope, and be a cowboy. It's something. It's a lifestyle that we have, the way we make a living, obviously. But it's really more than that. It gives us the opportunity as a family to be able to work together and enjoy each other's company and make a living at the same time. We've been using Triangle for years, and the reason we do it has been safe and effective, and we're going to continue to do that. We'll put the cows in the chute twice a year, spring and fall. 100% of our cattle get vaccinated with Triangle.
No matter where, no matter why, the Veterinary Health Center at Kansas State University is committed to providing quality patient care to animals and exceptional customer service to their owners. From routine checkups to emergency and specialty care, our world-renowned specialists and experienced professionals are here to discover, to teach, and to heal.
Let us know.
How can I help?
How can we help?
Norphenacol, florphenacol, is an excellent first-choice broad-spectrum antibiotic for the treatment and control of BRD and the treatment of foot rot. It offers a shorter sub-Q withdrawal time and is more syringeable than other florphenacol cattle antibiotics on the market. Norphenacol also addresses the issue of breakage with their new plastic bottles. Observe label directions and withdrawal times. See product labeling for full product information, including warnings and precautions. Fight the most common and costly disease affecting the beef cattle industry with Norphenacol from Norbrook. Broadband has become as important to us as highways. That is why DocTalk is teaming up with NTCA, the Rural Broadband Association, and rural broadband companies like Blue Valley Telecommunications in fighting for quality broadband access through the program Smart Rural Communities.
I don't think we have any idea what's coming in the future. I couldn't have imagined 5 years ago what we're doing today. So in 2 years, I would guess there's things we can't imagine that we're going to be doing.
To learn more, visit ntca.org/smart or bluevalley.net. Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
True Test Group, weighing systems, electronic identification EID, electric fencing, and dairy automation systems help farmers and ranchers around the world manage the performance of their livestock for ultimate profitability.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Dale Blasey. Dr. Blasey is a professor and he is the Extension Beef Specialist here at Kansas State University in the Department of Animal Science and Industry over in the College of Agriculture. Someone that Kansas State is very proud to have representing them not only here in research at the Stalker Unit, but when he goes out and provides producer education and working on a day-to-day basis. This is one of the guys that actually has his boots on the ground and out in it. And Dale, when we left, we were talking about, we talked a little bit about some of the supplemental feeding, but let's get into some of your ideas on supplemental feeding for wheat pasture, rye pasture cattle, and then that bloat prevention type strategies.
You bet, Dr. Dan. I tell you one thing, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the lifetime work of Dr. Gerald Horn at Oklahoma State. Yeah. So I think as folks go and dig into the internet and look for information to help provide their information, the work of that gentleman in the whole area of developing supplements, limited amount of supplements with a targeted amount of monensin sodium in the supplement. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that his work is really foundation to everything that we all know about the use of this particular grazing resource.
Yeah, Gerald is a good friend of both of ours and someone that's just done so much great work.
That's right. Well, providing a supplemental feed, there's so many things about it that producers can leverage with it. Management of calves, an opportunity to get really close to observe for any health issues, conditions that may occur, certainly any puffiness with respect to bloat. And as I alluded to earlier, bloat is a potential reality, and I've seen tremendous differences across the road from one pasture to the other in terms of soil type and all the various manifestations that go into whether or not we have a bloat provocative situation. But it's always better to be to anticipate that. A lot of producers will provide a supplemental silage. It really depends on what they have available for feeding. But there's been some work that Gerald and Dr. Terry Mader did years ago looking at the use of supplemental straw to try to reduce the caloric, the potential for gas, provide some more room and scratch. And they didn't see much of a response to that, as my memory recalls. But providing a supplemental energy source in the case of where your wheat stand may not be sufficient is one way to target performance to drill in, especially if we're experiencing a really harsh, cool, wet winter. And that's one thing we need to account for is the incredible increase in maintenance requirements that those animals need.
Yeah, it's wintertime, and if you don't have the food on the ground, you're going to have to get something out there to them, and don't wait too long.
That's right, and as I alluded to in one of the earlier segments with respect to dryland wheat, we can have incredible years where gains over an 80-day period, we saw 3 pounds with no shrink applied, but there's been some cases where gains are 1.5 pounds at best. So, if you're targeting a certain level, and with the value of gain today being about $1.10 to $1.15, there's some opportunities there, Dan, to add some weight to those calves at less the cost of the supplement to get as much as you can out of those cattle.
Sure, and still back them up on price so that when you get them out the door, they can do some good.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up with Dr. Blasey and talking about wheat pasture. And what we're going to talk about are some of the expected performances and differences that Dr. Blasey's seen out there. Appreciate you being on the show. Appreciate y'all watching the show. We'll be back after these messages.
Calves require adequate, high-quality colostrum immediately following birth to receive the immune and nutritional support needed to fight diseases and thrive. Next-generation Colostrix colostrum replacer and supplement are USDA licensed to aid in the treatment of failure of passive transfer and contain natural maternal bovine colostrum antibodies against E. coli K99. Ask your animal health supplier for Colostrix or visit agrilabs.com for details. Colostrix makes all systems go.
Hello friends, I'm Ernie Rodina.
And I'm Dawn Dawson with the Better Horses Radio Show.
For over 9 years, we've been bringing the Better Horses Radio Show to markets all across the Midwest. We talk about God, lots about horses.
We talk about cows, we talk about horse health, we talk to top trainers, and we even talk about Roy Rogers.
We're having a blast with Better Horses Radio Show and would love to take it to a market near you.
So visit our website at betterhorsesradio.com and let us or your local radio station know you'd like to hear it in your area.
The Better Horses Radio Show is unbelievable.
This hog is head over hoof for meal made from U.S. soybeans. Now, one hog isn't that impressive, but suppose we add another, and another, and another. Before long, you've got billions of hungry customers around the world all clamoring for the same thing. Our soybeans. Learn more about the billion-dollar appetite of animal agriculture at BeyondTheElevator.com. Brought to you by America's soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Beef producers asked for it, and the wait is over. Enroflox 100 Enrofloxacin from Norbrook, now approved for single-dose treatment and control of bovine respiratory disease. With the same active ingredient and dosing regimen as Baytril 100 in beef and non-lactating dairy cattle. Choose Enroflox 100 when looking for an injectable antimicrobial solution to treat and control BRD. Observe label directions and withdrawal times. See product labeling for full product information, including warnings and precautions. Consult your veterinarian to see if Enroflox 100 is right for your cattle. This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson and Dr. Dale Blasey. We're from Kansas State University, where Dr. Blasey is a professor and an extension beef specialist, focusing on stocker cattle and grazing cattle and basically anything within the beef cattle production area. We're fortunate to have him take time to come over and be on the show. Make sure you go to Stocker Day every September here in Manhattan, Kansas. But Dale, as we left, let's kind of wrap up the show and talk about expected performances and what you see with cattle turned out on wheat and different grazing systems.
A lot of variables impact performance on the outcome of grazing wheat, but condition of the calves going to grass, what kind of shape they're in relatively, quality of calves, there's a lot of things that impact that. Any degree of sickness, severity of weather can have a tremendous impact on the outside finishing up those calves. And you'll see performance somewhere in the ballpark as low as 1 1/4 pounds if you're stocked too heavy and there's nothing else besides a few blades of wheat and a lot of dirt out there, as opposed to some calves where there's unlimited intake. Conditions are such that they're grazing it at the maturity of that wheat staying fairly immature to where the quality is upwards of 15 to 18% protein, energy approximating 60% or so TDN, maybe even a little higher, but gains could be as high as 3 pounds.
Wow.
Applying the shrink. I think it's a function of the cattle, the environmental conditions, the conditions used to plant the wheat, planting heavy and thick, and making sure there's adequate fertility as well on that soil.
Oh yeah.
That'll be the good outcome with respect to grazing in the winter.
Yep, and then if you don't have it, you got to make sure that you get to work with a nutritionist or extension agent, something to figure out what kind of supplements work for the area that you're in.
That's right, and there's a lot of great co-products. So we used a lot of wheat mids out there, a grain mix, and again, Rumensin works very well. I'm a big believer in that ionophore for taking the steam off of the fermentation and going on in that rumen. It helps to minimize the provocative nature of showing up one morning and seeing 3 or 4 dead calves out there around the water tank.
Yeah, and it also will decrease intakes.
That's right.
And curb that intake pattern of those calves, especially when you get that, if you get a big rain or get that lush forage boom, that rumensin will keep them from busting up on those intakes.
Yes.
Any closing comments or thoughts for folks on turnout this year?
Everything works well when there's adequate moisture and you're not trying to, as dry as it is around the country, you need to be opportunistic with it when it's available. A lot of people chase it and try to plant deep to meet the moisture and fly it in and pray for, we're supposed to get moisture here in the coming week or so. It's a challenge. You just got to be ready to take advantage of it and have another plan if it doesn't come to be.
Well, thanks for all that you do for the state, and thanks for all that you do for the beef industry.
You bet, Dan. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Folks, thanks for watching DocTalk. Remember, always work with your local veterinarian. If you want to find out what we do here at K-State, you can find us on the web at www.vet.ksu.edu. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson. I appreciate you watching DocTalk today, and I'll see you down the road. Closed caption brought to you by AgriLabs, the perfect pairing of performance and value.
For more information about this program or previous programs, go to DocTalkTV.com. DocTalk was brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.